In Warrington, the street of terrace houses has been home to Alison Ryan for 30 years.
I was 19 years old and we moved around here because my parents got divorced. I couldn't really complain. The house was handy for town, it was handy for shopping.
But it wasn't just the great location, it was also the close-knit community that Alison loved.
Everybody sort of speaks to everybody. You know your neighbours by name, not just a whim down the road. How are you, Alison? All right? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, how are you?
But when her next-door neighbours sold up and the house was put up for rent, Alison was worried that the new arrivals could disturb the peace.
We were a little bit concerned about who the new tenants were going to be, because with these houses being pretty much right next to one another, next to one another, next to one another, and you've got your party wall, your party wall, your party wall. Shall we say, they're not the most quietest of houses to live in.
Little did Alison know that her neighbours were about to redefine the term party wall. And when she first caught a glimpse of them, it seemed that they certainly stood out from the crowd.
Quite a few older people live down here, and I actually noticed these two young girls were getting out. One of them was quite tall, the other one was a little bit smaller. They looked very Eastern European, very dark hair. They were two lovely looking girls. They were two very, very attractive girls, very attractive girls. And I just thought, oh, new neighbours. Two girls. That's not normal for around here.
And that wasn't all that caught Alison's attention.
What I actually found was quite strange. The guy that moved them in was actually speaking to the two girls, asking them what did they want to eat, did they want fries with it, didn't they want fries with it. And I thought a landlord wouldn't really speak to two tenants like that.
Intrigued, Alison was to witness more and more comings and goings over the next few days.
I actually noticed the guy that moved them in came time after time after time, probably for the next 5 days, with his little work belt on and a ladder. And because of the amount of time that he came, one would assume that he was actually the landlord because he was there that often.
And it wasn't just the shifty landlord. The girls that had moved in appeared to stand out from the regular locals.
They only basically had leggings on, nice jacket, no designer clothes or anything like that, but you could notice the nice nails, and you could also tell that they had nice iPhones, which, you know, they're not a couple of pence here and there, are they? Absolutely not. Thought that was very strange. They were able to spend the money and they didn't actually seem to be working. I was just wondering where they were actually getting the money from.
But as time went on, Alison would soon find out that the girls next door were hiding a dirty secret.
Oh my God, gross. Dirty bitches, disgusting, absolutely gross.
In Swindon, Jo Wilson and her neighbours had been proud of their neat and tidy neighbourhood for many years. But since new resident Lily Goddard moved in, their pleasant cul-de-sac was starting to resemble a junkyard.
It's just a mess, and it's only getting worse.
But what Jo and the residents didn't know was that Lily had even bigger plans for her new property.
We just got home from my daughter's birthday meal, just sat watching the television, and all of a sudden my daughter shouted down to me, "Mum, you need to go out, get up and look outside the front window. You won't believe what you're seeing." So I got up. I looked out the window, there was all flashing orange lights, and there was a big transporter blocking the road with a static caravan on the back. And I thought, what? I was just in total shock.
Jo watched as the transporter made a beeline for the green, straight in the direction of Lily's property.
Then they proceeded to get the transporter up on the grass, the lovely green grass that we had there, trying to get it off the back of the transporter, trying to manoeuvre it back into the property. Then we heard this almighty bang, and the caravan just went like lopsided to the side. The axle had broken, and the caravan was stuck there, it couldn't be moved. At this point, I was just gobsmacked.
With the view now resembling a junkyard, Jo and her neighbours' worst fears were turning into a reality.
It was just shocking.
Lily now had a small collection of caravans, but what the neighbours didn't know was what she had planned for the largest one.
We realised that she'd installed a log burner into the caravan.
The council told Jo and the neighbours that Lily Goddard claimed the 3-bed static caravan was for her family to live in temporarily, while she worked on the house, as it had been declared unsafe for a young child to live in.
It doesn't make sense. Why would you be doing that?
We asked Lily to appear on camera, and although she was keen to share her side of the story, she wanted to remain anonymous.
The reason why I moved to this area because I wanted to just have a fresh start, you know, somewhere else. This is the living room. This was the area where we eat. This is the room of my younger child. This is the room of my oldest son. The bathroom. Originally, you know, I was living in the house, and the time the house was bought, I didn't know that there are so many major issues, you know, during the renovation. And when we discovered that we didn't have enough financial funds to carry out fully, and this was the only affordable option.
However, since Lily moved into the caravan, neighbourly relations had hit boiling point.
They're not hard up. They've got free cars.
This neighbour took the opportunity to speak to Lily while she was being filmed.
We're fed up with you. You come into an area where people have kept it up together for many years and you've ruined it.
I'm really sorry.
You're a disgrace, my love. A disgrace. Oh, terrible.
That's what I have to deal with, you know, here, you know.
Jo was suspicious that while Lily and her family were living in the caravan, other people had moved into her house.
There was lots of children and teenagers over the wall, playing in the garden, in the streets.
The neighbours were concerned that Lily could be renting out her home to multiple occupants.
And you just thought, what on earth is going on? As I pulled up outside my house, this is what I came back to.
In Warrington, when a couple of young women in their 20s moved into a tight-knit terrace next door to Alison Ryan, eyebrows were raised and suspicion mounted about how their presence might affect the peace on the street.
They had 2 nice iPhones, and they both had very nice manicures, shall we say, which obviously must have cost a few pence. They were 2 very, very attractive girls.
And an added hint of glamour on the street started to attract plenty of visitors.
After they'd actually moved in and they'd been in there a few days, I was just sat watching the TV. This little silver car pulled up. Didn't think anything of it. Anyway, he got out and it turned out he went next door. He was probably in there for about 10 minutes. Shuffled back out, got into his car and quickly drove away. Didn't really think much of it until another car pulled up. Parked again in front of the house, went in, probably was in there for maybe about half an hour, came back out, got in his car, drove off. Then about 10 minutes later, somebody else turned up, and I'm thinking, what's actually going on here? I mean, I've lived round here for that long, and no guys have ever come that many and knocked on my door like that. I've never had that many friends.
And the evening had just got started.
About 8 or 9 different cars pulled up. Some stayed 10 minutes, some stayed half an hour, some stayed 20 minutes. A lot of them were quite high-end cars, not your little old bangers. They were nice-looking guys. They weren't sort of dogs or anything like that. They were quite attractive men, sort of going in and coming out. But there was one particular guy, and I absolutely burst out laughing. Went in again, quite a nice-looking guy, came out, pulling himself up like this, tucking himself in, pulling himself together. And I just went, oh, you're a really sad man, you sad, sad man.
After an evening of constant visits, Alison had a disturbing suspicion about what was really going on next door. So she confided in another neighbour 2 doors down.
I asked her, had she seen the new Neighbours? She said, yes. And I said to her, what do you think? I said, are you thinking the same thing as I'm thinking? She said, I think they're prostitutes. Now, I wasn't going to say that until I heard that come out of your mouth, and I thought exactly the same thing. I was very concerned about what was going on. I've lived around here for 30-odd years. Why should they have to put up with this? All right, if people want to do that, that's totally their prerogative, but not doing it next door to me.
Alison was sure she was living next door to a brothel that had opened for business and seemed to be doing a roaring trade. But before long, the evidence of what they were up to was quite literally piling up.
So I was just coming out of the back gate, just was taking the dog for a walk, just come round, and I couldn't believe what was sticking out the top of the bins. There was like an empty condom box, there was tissues all over the place, and it was just, I thought, you dirty bitches, fancy leaving that like that for it to all blow down the backs and everything? Oh, that is minging, that's absolutely minging.
Coming up, raunchy rubbish wasn't the only issue Alison would have to deal with.
Getting more wound up and more wound up because I'm thinking, is it ever going to stop? Is it ever going to stop?
And in Swindon, the trailer park next door gets yet another big delivery.
It just blew my mind. It was ridiculous.